All right, I'm here with Stan Beck, the first person that I ever spoke to on the phone regarding jiu-jitsu. When I got invited to go train jiu-jitsu with Jocko Willink, and I said, what's this jiu-jitsu thing? I had seen Renzo Gracie train, but I didn't know much more than that. And I wasn't a big watcher of UFC, so I didn't know too much. Went in my Google on my phone, and I looked up jiu-jitsu. I saw Renzo Gracie. I go, Gracie, that sounds good. Let me make a call. And I called, and probably a ring later, Stan picked up, and I spoke to you, and you were fantastic, and you had me come in the next day. That's where I spoke with Adrian. But so this is the man who first introduced me to jiu-jitsu, Stan Beck. Really happy to have you here, and I want to hear all about you. I think you're an interesting guy. You're different from most anybody I know. You're a great martial artist. You've trained a bunch of stuff. Your jiu-jitsu black belt is very worn out. So that tells me you've been doing this for a long time. Welcome.
Thank you, man. It's really a pleasure.
Yeah.
Happy to see all the things you're doing.
Thank you. Good to have you here. All right, so let's talk. Where did it all start out for you?
Well, I'll give you a brief history of like who I am.
Yeah.
I'm from New York City. I'm first generation American.
Your parents are from where?
They're from France. Mm-hmm. They came here separately when they were, give or take, 20 years old from France. They're actually children of the Holocaust. They were hidden children during the Holocaust.
How old are your parents?
So my dad was born in 1935. The war ended in 1945. So he those are formative years for him. Christian family took him in on a farm, and he had to pretend that those were his parents, which you can imagine how traumatic that was. My mom was born in 1941, so she was 4 years old when the war ended in France. But it's something that she really carried her whole life. It's still a major part of her, and how she looks at the world, how she looks at other people, how she feels people look at her because she's Jewish. Both my parents are Jewish. Mm-hmm. And they moved here. They met later and had me and my father's previously married. Have a half sister named Michelle who's about 12 years older. My sister's 2 years older than me. So we're first generation Americans. Raised in New York City, in Queens. Queens is the most ethnically diverse county in the world. So it was normal. I didn't feel like an outsider at all. Yeah. Everyone is first generation or right off the boat. It's rare to even see third generation Americans where we were living. So I was very lucky. I was born in 1970. I'm 54 now. So I really got to see New York City. I got to see old New York. So, you remember the movie with Daniel Day-Lewis, 5 Points?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's like old New York. And there were still parts of New York City and Brooklyn and Queens that were like that, which is fantastic. And then, I grew up, in the 70s, so the people who were a little older than me were growing up in the 60s. So I was getting that vibe. Yeah. It was interesting. And I was always into martial arts since I'm a little kid. We used to. So if you're around my age, you remember watching on Saturday afternoons the kung fu movies and stuff like that. And though I knew that kung fu didn't work really, but I loved the idea of fighting and the honor. I was always into Japanese culture as far as Bushido code and martial arts. So I first started when I was about 8 years old, Judo. Did Judo for a little bit, not long.
Were your parents, was your dad into it?
No, not at all. So my father, I'm happy to talk about anything. My father was a man who felt he had to take care of the family, but he wasn't, he never threw a ball with me, never kicked a soccer ball, never did anything like that with me. Never had patience for that kind of stuff. He was one of those guys when he was doing work around the house, come help me. And it was just hold the flashlight, and then he was like, hold the flashlight, I said, like I'm an idiot. So it wasn't a lot of fun around my father. But, he paid his bills and he was there. My mom was a very loving mother. But also she was neurotic, is neurotic.
How does that manifest itself, neurotic? What does that do to you as a kid? Would she make you clean a lot?
No, no. It was more screaming, screaming. I wasn't beaten down, but I was hit by parents. But I think everyone in my generation and before me were hit by their parents.
And screaming like, nobody helps me, I'm always alone. What was she complaining about?
No, like, you're an idiot. What are you doing? She wouldn't say necessarily, but actually she could say it, but imagine with a French accent. Like, you're doing this wrong. Why? And always trying to control everything you do. That kind of stuff. Like everything you do. Like
You couldn't do it right.
You couldn't do right, but hey, listen, parents, these are new people. They don't know. So what to you think is a normal thing. Hey, how do you not know how to put the dishes in the dishwasher so that they can get cleaned, imagined properly, as opposed to putting one on top of the other.
Yeah.
Just all things like that, and just getting yelled at. So what that did to me, it made me, or maybe I was like that already and I was born like this, an introvert. So I always recognized inside of me, like, hey, this isn't right. How I'm being spoken to. Though there was great love that she gave me, but I still knew it wasn't right to be spoken to like that, and it was very stressful for me. I was definitely stressed, so I became very introverted, and I would think about life and think about things and how I wanted to be in the future, and I think a really important thing is to recognize, hey, this isn't right. What the situation you're living in, don't accept it. And try not to repeat it. Because even if you do recognize this isn't right and I'm not happy with it, it's ingrained. So it's very hard not to repeat it. So as a parent, I have to fight with myself not to act certain ways with my kids.
You sometimes feel like telling them you're not holding that flashlight properly?
Yeah. A lot of things. But my kids, but one thing I did do for my kids is that I allowed them to think freely for themselves. So I remember one day my kid said to me, "Dad, I'm just a kid." And I was like, "Whoa,
wow,
he's right." So that's a good thing that I did. I allowed my.
Would
kids
you
to
have said that to your parents?
No, never, absolutely never. I would have been hit.
Yeah,
I would have been hit.
Same here.
Yeah, I would have been hit. My dad would give me a nasty look, and if I dared to give a look back in any way that I didn't approve of his look, man, I would get smacked.
Just put your head down.
Yeah, I would get smacked. I'd walk away, or head down, or walk away. No, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, no way. But listen, don't hit your kids. I've never hit my kids.
Wow.
I've never hit my kids. Don't hit your kids. You feel, can you curse on this a little bit?
Oh, you curse all you want.
You feel like a piece of shit when the person you love, who's supposed to protect you, is hitting you. You're not thinking like, oh, they don't know how to deal with the situation. They're not handling their anger properly. Right. They don't know. It's not that they don't know what they're doing, which is what it really is.
Yeah.
You think, oh man, like, what's wrong with me? And you're not even thinking it's consciously. So you're like, what's wrong with me? I deserve to be hit. And you feel very small. So this person who's supposed to build you up is actually doing the opposite. It's not even neutral it's not even neutral what they're doing for you. They're actually bringing you down. I used to get into a lot of fights when I was a kid. Just, that was the time. And
what time? When did it start? What age?
Man, once I was getting into fights by 7 years old. Yeah.
No wonder you were interested in judo.
Yeah, and Kung Fu. I never started fights, and not to say, well, I always finish. I mean, I usually always did win. I was naturally a good fighter. I'm not the greatest jiu-jitsu guy in the world. I'm tough. I'm a tough guy. I have good technique, classic jiu-jitsu technique, not modern, which modern is awesome, but it's not my game. I'm very good, but I recognize there's people who are certainly better in jiu-jitsu, but I'm a good fighter, all-around fighter. I love fighting.
And it started with
just
judo?
In school. Well, I did, because I was interested in fighting. So there was a judo class in my YMCA, and I took two sessions, two semesters of it, whatever it's called. But my parents didn't support really anything I did. They never pushed me to do anything. I was never on a team sport. I never put football pads on. I never had anyone pitch a baseball to me. But in New York City, you play in the streets, stickball and football and all that. But as far as it's important to if you've ever been in a fight in the street with somebody, when you lose, it's terrible feeling, because it's not like tennis you lost. It's not like football you lost. This is a core to your being. And if you, when you lose a street, and it's not just me, maybe not everyone, but I believe many people, when you lose a street fight, it's very crushing. It's not whether or not you got black eyes, bloody lip, didn't matter. You understand, like, man, you just don't feel worthwhile, you know, and it's something you have to learn how to deal with, because you're not going to win every fight. So when your parents do this to you, it's even worse.
Yeah, absolutely. And in a street fight, a couple things. It puts you lose as a kid. It puts you in your pecking order.
Yeah.
And if that's losing,
yes,
you're at the bottom. That sucks. And then on top of that, people are going to talk.
Yes.
And friends are going to have seen this, and now everybody's going to bring it back up.
Yes, you're embarrassed. You feel embarrassed. You feel terrible. Luckily, I didn't really lose any fights or to people who were in my class. But older kids sometimes would then start with me, and, you know, I would lose that fight. But, and I remember fighting, what it was like. I really remember it well. Like, I loved wrestling. I loved playing with my friends. But when a street fight happened, I didn't mind that. You know, I was nervous if you knew it was going to be after school. For sure. Like,
because you're thinking about it all day.
You don't want to know. Like, let it just happen now. I don't want to know what's going to happen later. Yeah. But I remember very well, and it's something that I try and teach my kids. Like, hey, when you're going to get into a fight, this is what you're going to feel. Everyone around, we're animals. I mean, we're like wolves. And everyone around is cheering and wanting to go on and wanting someone to get their ass kicked. And whoever's losing, they want them to get hurt. And I remember during the fights, every time I'd be very aware of the crowd, and I'm like, why doesn't, you know, and again, like I said, I'm winning the fight almost always, but why doesn't someone stop this fight? Like, why are they doing this? And that always made me, you know, feel, it's a strange feeling. Like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be doing this. Why are people encouraging this? I want it to end, but they don't. So you feel like, man, I have to keep going, because I know this guy is going to hurt me. Yeah. You know, and I explained that to my kids. Like, you're going to be scared. It's normal. You're going to have adrenaline pumping through your system. And what you're going to feel is you're going to feel scared and weak. Physically weak. Your muscles, like, they don't, but actually you're moving faster, you're stronger. And when you recognize that, hey, that guy is feeling the same thing, and maybe he's more used to it. Because if you're not used to fighting, you know, you're not necessarily going to perform as well. So even if the guy's just full of piss and vinegar, but doesn't actually have technique, he's going to come at you in a way to hurt you. And I tell my kids, I go, listen, we're very different than animals in the sense of when a dog comes to another dog, one's going to say, hey, I'm alpha dog. And if you don't recognize that I'm alpha dog, I'm going to come at you and we're going to fight. And that fight's over when I finish dominating you. But if you admit right away, like, hey, you're alpha, go on your back, belly up, no problem. We're done. Humans are different. If someone comes in the street and starts with you and you get diminutive, you get inferior, now they're really going to come. You know, we're not like other. Now, this is what they're looking for. They're not looking for a fight. They're looking for a victim.
Yeah, they want that weakness.
Yes. So you can't show that. Don't. And you know, everyone says it's fight or flight. No. It's fight, flight, or freeze.
That's right.
Yeah. And freeze is what they're looking for. And if you fight them, you know, if they've done it often, they'll fight back. But once you start to win, they're going to gas and they're going to go away. And even if you lose against that guy, he'll never, ever start with you again. And other people, if this was a school thing and they see what you did, that you fought back, they might make fun, they might joke. They will not fight you.
Yeah, you send a message.
Yeah, they do not want to fight.
And that works victims. On the playground and in prison, too.
Yeah. Well, luckily I wasn't. I spent the night once, but luckily I've never been in prison. Yeah, so that's the, you know, that you have to, and one, man, I carry this to this day. I was 13 years old. And then, like I said, I had been in many fights when I was young, as many people are. For some reason, one day, I'm walking home. It's a long walk home. I used to, even back then, I used to love long walks, thinking about exercise. It was good for me. 13 years old, I'm walking. This kid comes out of a bodega. So bodega is like a little grocery
corner store.
Yeah. And he's my age, my size, maybe a year older, but my age. He's like, hey, let me have a quarter. Back then, you know, like a arcade game was a quarter and a little bag of chips was a quarter. Let me have a quarter. I don't know him. I'm like, no. You know, I'm like, no, I don't have. And he punches me in the face. Wow. Boom, right in the eye. And for some reason, I didn't fight back. I froze. He's like, give me a quarter. I'm like, no, I don't have a quarter, you know? And then he punched me again in the face, you know, and I took it. And then I grab his arms, and I'm controlling the guy. So I knew, like, I can beat this guy. He couldn't get away. And then I'd let go, and he hit me again.
Oh, boy.
And for some reason, I froze. And then an adult came by and was like, hey, kids, stop. And I left. I walked away. And, man, I never forgot this. Like, to this day, like, there's so many fights I don't remember. So many.
But that one stuck
with you. I will never
with you.
forget it. And I share the story with people to let them know it's something that can happen, that you can freeze, and you have to do everything you can. Because I felt terrible that somebody can do that to me. Like, what is my value if somebody can do that to me?
And what was that walk home like?
It was terrible. It was terrible. And then you're mad at your friend that your friend doesn't help. I had one or two friends there, and one of them was a big Chinese kid, George Chow.
That's the worst, when your friends don't back you up. I've had that in a fight too.
Yeah, it's terrible. And so I felt terrible. My dad didn't really do anything, but my dad's best friend, an Italian-American guy, spoke to me, and he gave me a great talking to about how you have to defend yourself, win or lose, because you will give yourself the recognition that you have value, that you are important. And you are. I don't care who you are. You are important, you have value, and you must keep that for yourself. And the black eye that you will have if you lose the fight and you fought back or whatever it is that will heal. And you'll feel like shit. That then for a day you'll feel terrible. Mm-hmm. But for a lifetime you will carry when you let somebody... You know, even though I knew I was a good fighter and I can make up for things in the future by winning other fights, you will carry that. And you won't overcome it until you get into another fight and now defended yourself. So you must get into another fight. Anything you ever do, you fail at whatever it is you do.
Get back on that horse.
Get back on. You know, you're skiing and you got your ass, you fell. That sucked. I never want to ski again, you say. Okay, no problem. Go back up one more time and then come down. And okay, I know at least I get up and I go again. Yeah. It might not be for me, but I will not run from things because it's a habit. It's a habit that you build. Everything is a habit that you build.
For sure. And it carries over from whether it's sports or fighting or whatever. Yeah. When you talk about that feeling, and you described it well, when you get in a fight, you do feel weak.
Yeah.
Right? And it takes over. And I think it gets better with time and more scenarios. Right? If you compete, the first few times you're going to be nervous and feel weak. But how do you avoid, what do you know about adrenaline dump? Mm-hmm. Because, man, after a competition, when it's all over, you had 4 matches in one day, it's exhausting. Yeah. Everything's gone. Is there a way to avoid that?
You have to, so are we talking competition or
let's say in a competition.
A competition. It's very important for you to go in there and set your mind that you're going to go have fun. That you're going to have fun because that will relax you. And also, once again, recognize this guy's feeling the same thing. He has the adrenaline. He's going. Everyone feels super strong. I don't care who you are. That first 2-3 minutes, damn, this guy's strong.
You can't break their grips.
Yeah, it's like, oh my God. Yeah. Like, I thought I was the strong guy and like, man, I'm going against this guy. But they'll gas. So the more relaxed you are and the more relaxed you will be is if you're going into it to have fun. And that's how you succeed.
In a street fight, I don't think you have to worry about the adrenaline dump. For one, it's short and it's one time, probably. You're going to scrap and then it's over. Yeah. But in a competition, you might have multiple.
I find exhausting street fights. I find hopefully it's going to be quick, but if you have an experienced guy fighting, or if you're fighting, multiple guys, so it's like not just you multiple, like, my friends against your friends, which has happened. You finish this guy, now you're dealing with this guy, and hopefully that adrenaline keeps running because the adrenaline dumps are a thing. It's a real thing. It's scary. It's scary when you feel tired. Yeah. Conditioning makes a pussy out of everyone. That's the saying. So it doesn't matter how tough you think you are or good, but if once you start getting tired in that fight, it lowers not just your physical abilities, but your mental confidence. Yeah. And that's a big thing. So
you liked Kung Fu as a kid, a little bit of Judo. How did you become a real fighter? What started happening?
So with that fight, I joined a karate school, and it was a little bit after, I think it was right around Karate Kid. So I joined a karate school.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, and I was very lucky. It was Alex Sternberg's school in Forest Hills, Queens, and he was actually in a movie, a documentary. It was called, I don't remember what it was called. It was about all, like 5 famous, very tough karate guys. Alex Sternberg's his name, a religious Jewish guy, and but very tough. And so my karate school was actually the real deal. You know, many of them are not, especially as time has gone on. They're terrible. They hand out black belts to people who are just horrible. And the worst part about it is that, I mean, besides the fact that they're taking a lot of money and not giving anything real, what they're promising. They're like, oh, but we help them with school and confidence and conduct. Okay, but you're getting paid really to make sure they know how to defend themselves, and that's a secondary thing, the school and discipline. But luckily, it was actually a very hardcore school, and we really fought. We sparred very hard, and I did that. I loved it. But what happened was after 2-3 years, because I've done quite a few martial arts, I realized, you know what, this doesn't actually work in the street.
Which part of it?
So we would do karate. So we did katas, which is the forms, you know, like a choreographed dance, and then we had sparring. And I from very beginning, I was like, why is it? So Shotokan karate is a hard style of karate as opposed to a soft style like kung fu, which is flowy ballet. And why is it that the katas that we do, the techniques we learn, are so different than when we're actually sparring? Not when I'm sparring, when I'm watching the black belt spar. Why is it that now their hands are like low and they're bouncing?
Yeah.
And you know,
and the katas don't do that?
No, the kata is, you know, a strength move to boom and moving, and
that's right.
Well, but here they're like hands are low. It's not like, you know, and so I recognize, okay, that's odd. But yet, you know, if you get punched by them in the face, you got kicked, it hurt.
Yeah.
And Shotokan karate, I feel, is fantastic for the initial strike. Like the distance that a Shotokan karate guy can close and how hard his reverse punches and fast. Lyoto Machida is fantastic. But if you've closed the distance at all, and I'm not even just talking about jiu-jitsu, like just simply have closed the distance and they don't have combinations that they're really putting together. Maybe it's 2 techniques, at best 3, but boom, point, separate, start again. And I saw it didn't really work. And I had seen in the street some good karate guys lose against just street thugs.
And what was done against them? They close the distance and grapple?
Yeah, no, or not even grapple, because most people didn't know what to do. Like sometimes they would close and it would fall to the ground and it would be sloppy. But like just standing, like the guy, he'd miss the kick, so the guy would come in and just throw punches. And it could be, again, piss and vinegar, doesn't even know how to punch prop. You know, like windmill punches. But you know, he'd get hit, and he was used to a ref stopping it, and now you're getting hit and hit and hit, and his mind just kind of shuts off. And
confidence must plummet at that point.
So then I stopped that, and then I went into boxing. I trained at Gleason's Boxing, which is in Brooklyn, New York, which is a very famous hardcore boxing gym, and that was cool. I got my boxing better. That was a lot of fun. Then I went to college. And then so I was always kind of like going back and forth. And then I was living in Little Neck, Queens, and there was a Jeet Kune Do academy. So Jeet Kune Do is Bruce Lee style. Now, those of you who don't know, you think Bruce Lee was a great movie actor, and it was, Bruce Lee was a great fighter. He was a fighter. When he was in Hong Kong in the Kowloon district, he would get into street fights all the time. He was in gangs. He got in a lot of trouble. Came over. He was actually an American. He was actually born in America.
Yes, to an American mom, I think.
His mother was his mother
European?
was half white. His grandmother, I believe, was German. But she was the mother was half Chinese, half German. The father was full Chinese and was a famous actor. Bruce had acted when he was a child. And a shout out though, real quick, to Bill, my instructor, who was like my real instructor at that Shotokan karate. Still in Forest Hills, Queens. Fantastic karate guy, tough dude. I learned a lot about toughness from him. But I saw, and I always read a lot about Bruce. And his style, was about like, what works for you is different from other people. Here are some basic things: boxing hands, fencing footwork, Muay Thai kicks and elbow. Your strong hand is your lead hand. So boxing, you have your left. So everyone's usually a righty. So your left is in front. Yeah. Jab, jab, jab to set up the strong right. Bruce's idea was, hey, listen, if your right hand is strong, put that in front. So your jab is going to be very powerful, because that hand coming from behind is gaining so much power.
It'll make up and get more power.
So now you have two very strong hands. So,
so if right now you squared up with some bad guy on the street, how would you stand up?
I mix. I actually do both stances. And my hands are so messed up now from jiu-jitsu that I feel I need to go Bruce's idea of right hand forward, because my right hand, I don't know if you can see, but like I can't really make a fist.
Yeah, that
because
finger's a little
fingers
stuck.
From the gi being
all the
wrapped
grabbing
in and people pulling, and so my left hand can still make a nice closed fist. So I'll jab with the right, but I mix up, depends on what I'm doing. And I did that, and it was progressive martial arts in Little Neck, Queens. Dino Orfanos was his name, a Greek guy. He was a good teacher. He was an immature guy. I don't mean to put him down or anything. And Dino, if you ever hear this, you're a great teacher. But he was immature. He didn't, I feel, treated. He spoke to students, putting them down a little bit when I felt he shouldn't. But I loved it. It was awesome. I learned so much about the movement and the idea of how to fight. It was really great. And I remember, so I'm a bit esoteric, and I believe in, past lives and universe and, our soul, our spirit. I remember living, so at this time I had my frozen yogurt business. I'd been a waiter my whole life, so started at busboy from when I was 13, went to a waiter till I was like 23. And I started my first business. It was a frozen yogurt distributorship. I was selling Ultimate Fitness yogurt. It was called Alpha One, from a couple of guys that I went to college with, Freddie and Sean, and great stuff. So whatever. So I'm laying in bed. I have my own apartment.
Keep the mic close.
I have my own apartment. I'm laying in bed, and I remember laying there, and I wasn't happy with Dino as a person. Like I think when you're learning something as important as martial arts or anything that is important to you. You want to also learn, how to be a man, how to be a good human being from that same person too, because you're looking up to them.
Yeah.
And luckily, I was able to segment it. That hey, this guy's a lot to teach in martial arts. But
not a great role model.
Yeah, not a great role model. So I remember laying in bed one day. I wish that I had the opportunity to learn from a real master. Like man, that would have been great. Like back in the day in Japan, that would be fantastic. Next day, now I had seen, my friend had told me, hey, did you see that Ultimate Fighting thing? Because he knew I was into martial arts. I'm like, no, what is it?
UFC 1?
UFC 1. And I was like, what is it? And he told me. I'm like, oh, man, that's amazing. And then he was like, hey, the second one is coming out. It was months after the first. I watched it. And I remember looking like, what is this guy Hoist doing? Like, I thought it was like Navy SEAL or something, like Special Forces. Like, man, like, what is that? And I was really intrigued. I was impressed. And Brazilian family, they're talking about the announcers.
And until then, you had never fought on the ground?
An art, like learned?
Right.
No,
nothing.
Because there was nothing
out there?
So judo had very little
groundwork.
Very little niwaza, very little groundwork. It was always mostly stand-up. Some schools would focus on it, like there was the Kano school, or they did stand-up, but then there was another faction but by far, and then there was wrestlers. Yeah. And in New York City, we didn't have wrestling. We didn't have really much football at all. Like there's basketball. It was inexpensive. So no wrestling or anything, just because I always had a natural inclination to moving pretty well on the ground. And then I saw Renzo in World Combat Championships. Now, if those of you who love the UFC but may not have known stuff back in the day, maybe you heard of Pride, but World Combat Championships, when Renzo Gracie fought, it was a tournament as well. So he had 4 fights in one night. Was it 4? It was 1, 2, maybe it was 3 fights in one night, and no gloves, no rules.
Eye gouging, kicks to the groin.
No, you can never eye gouge.
Oh, okay. Fish hook, eye gouge.
You can never fish hook. You can never eye gouge, but you can groin hit. And there was no weight class. So it was like the first UFC, same rules.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing him and his intensity and the domination. He was the smallest by far out of everyone, and he crushed. So I'm laying in bed, and whatever, it passed. I'm laying in bed, and I wish I could learn from a master like that. Would be amazing. And the next day, my friend tells me, hey, you know, Renzo Gracie opening an academy in Manhattan. He's opened an academy in Manhattan. I'm like, no.
What an opportunity.
Yeah, so back and go through the yellow pages, you know. So I went. It might have been the next day I went. You don't know the schedule. You know, there's really no online.
No internet. Yeah.
I walk in. And you just see, you smell it. I still remember to this day the energy you walked in. Man, it was the savageness of it. Just not what I'm necessarily. I'm just saying the energy you're getting. Like, man, this is different than anything I've ever seen or felt from any martial arts school. And Renzo wasn't there that day. He had a partner named Craig Cook, an American guy. Renzo was in Japan fighting. I think it was shoji. So I did it, and man, I was one of the best guys in my Jeet Kune Do school, maybe the best guy, or certainly one of the top 2, 3. And I got my ass kicked, and I was, man, what is this magic? It was magic to me.
Yeah,
Like literally,
voodoo.
what is this? Like I have no idea what you're doing. I don't care who you are in the United States. You understand what a punch is. You might not know how to throw a punch, but you understand. Like what is this?
Yeah.
And now, and I try and teach my students, my ex-students, like when you train with someone who doesn't know, or even someone who knows, and you tap them with something, go now try and tap them with something else. Like you found their vulnerability, you figured it out.
Mix
if you
it up.
tap them again with that thing, you're not learning anything. Yeah. You're just being a bit of a bully. You're not, you until you tell him how to defend it, you're not helping him by like, oh, look how I keep catching on this. You
might not actually be helping yourself either, because
no, you're not.
Let them know how to defend it, so you got to now find a better way.
That's how I teach. As I roll with people, I say, hey, fix this. Because when I first had my school, I was a brown belt and everyone was white. And I was like, man, I'm not. And I learned this from Renzo. Renzo did his best in his career when he moved to the United States, and he had like almost only white, blue, was because he was showing people how to beat him, how to defend. And that forced him to get better. So I walk in, I learn, but back then, man, this guy, Keith Villanueva, and I'm friends with him, nice guy, but he armbarred me from closed guard probably 7 times in 4 minutes. Like, bang, and it would be like, ow, and he was fucking thrilled, and I was like,
and you feel stupid,
yeah,
getting hit with the same thing. You don't know what to do.
No, I don't know. Hold the hips, like nothing. But because I loved fighting, I was like, I have to learn how to. You're
intrigued.
I have to learn how to, like, what is this magic? Like, this is incredible. And back then, because it was savage the way we trained, only the tough guys would survive and keep coming. So, which is not good, because the tough guys don't need jiu-jitsu. You don't need to learn how to fight. It's good, but the people who really need it are weak people.
It's also hard to run a business that way,
and
because there's a limited number of really tough guys, and then you're not going to serve the rest.
I'll actually get into that as far as the business aspect of it, because I think is interesting. But yeah, so the next day I went back to my Jeet Kune Do school, and
did you show him what you learned?
No, I told him, hey, listen, I went to this school out of respect. I want to let you know, and I'm not going to be coming back anymore. And a little side note, he goes, huh? Okay. And he goes, hold on a second. And he looked at opened up the folder. He had a folder in the filing cabinet. Looked, he goes, oh, your contract's expired. What the fuck am I talking to you for? And in my head, I was like, thank you for making that so much easier for me.
Wow.
And I left.
Yeah.
And so I went back. So I joined. And back then we were paying, I think it was $35 per class. There was no memberships. It was $35 drop-ins.
That's a lot of money back then.
It was a lot of money. But there was Fabio Clemente was teaching. He was the first guy in Manhattan. And then and there was Renzo. And the Renzo Craig Cook Academy. But so you had really no choice. So that's how you did it. You just paid $35 every time you went in. And but yeah, I was going in 4 days a week. And so back then, if you saw a blue belt, it was like, wow. So there was a few blues. So John Danaher was a blue belt.
Wow.
Sean Williams was blue. And there are other names that were great in academy places that people don't know, but were like as good as them. And then Matt Serra and Nikki Serra were purples, which was just like, whoa, you know. And there was just like a couple other purples. Was like, wow, purple belts.
Yeah, unheard of.
Ricardo Almeida was a brown belt.
Oh, you didn't say what year this is.
So this is 1998.
Oh,
yeah. So it was kind of, their first guys were probably the late 70s in California, but it was like in the garage, learning from Hoyce and Hickson and a couple of Gracies.
Late 70s? You mean late 80s?
No, late 70s actually was when the first Gracies first came over to California. Was it Crolin, I think it was. Started teaching a little bit, but it was like nothing. Like no one really. And then the 80s kind of built up. So Craig Cook was actually the first American black belt. He got it from Hoyce. And then he partnered with Renzo, and they opened up in Manhattan. Cook, I don't remember where he was from. Nasty guy. Like I remember asking him, like, you know, where he's teaching, and I go, hey, excuse me, you know, there's what ifs, and what if people can be annoying, but this was, I felt, a legitimate, you know, what do I do? He goes, just listen to what I say and just do what I say. I was like, okay, hadn't met Renzo yet. Renzo was still in Japan. But people were kicking my ass, and, you know, and I remember Nicky was getting ready for an MMA fight, and he goes, hey, Stan, you know, have you ever done martial? I go, yeah, I've done a lot of stand-up. He goes, oh, I'm getting ready. Do me a favor, put gloves on and come at me, and I'm going to try and finish you. I was like, man, like, I'm getting my ass kicked already now, like, let alone MMA. So he goes, no, I promise I won't hit you. I'm like, you're not going to hit me? He goes, no, I promise I won't hit. I go, okay.
What was he going to work on then? Defense
just
or jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, finish me, you know? Okay. And defense. So I'm like, okay. So I remember going, squaring up. Classic jiu-jitsu. Big swing. He ducks under, double leg, takes me down. I turn away to get up. He jumps on my back and flips me. And I remember, like, where the fuck is he? And then, boom, rear naked choke. And he's a sweetheart. Nick is a child at heart. Oh, he's just such a great person. Jiu-jitsu was like pretty much as good as Matt Serra's, his brother. And so whatever. So I kept training. And I remember the first day I walk into the academy when Renzo's there. And so I walk in. I'm a little bit late. And Renzo's there on the mat. And I walk in. I'm like, oh, there's the dude I saw on TV. Yeah. There's the guy who can... I haven't seen, but I obviously can beat up all these guys who play with me. And I saw this neck that I've never seen before. You know, we don't have wrestling in New York City, so very little anyway, you know, in junior high and high school, certainly not elementary. Very minimal. Long Island had some, but I've never seen a neck like that. And I was like, whoa. And so I'm kind of like standing there stunned, and I remember him looking. He goes, fresh meat. And I was like, fresh meat. Fuck. But yeah, go in, man. What a incredible human being he is.
Was this all gi?
We would do gi, and when we did no gi, it would be gi pants and a t-shirt, some kind of t-shirt that you had. So everyone's t-shirts were raggedy. Eventually, it moved forward to shorts, board shorts with t-shirt. Rash guards didn't start happening until, I don't know, like the early 2000s, something like that's what it was like. And if you were getting ready for MMA or something, because they were all fighting,
no shirt,
Rodrigo, just no shirt.
Yeah, no shirt.
Gi pants, no shirt. You know, it wasn't even shorts then. We had Rodrigo Gracie there, so I was very lucky, you know, to have grown up in that environment. So it was really the beginning, the very, very beginning of like the first real wave of jiu-jitsu. It was very, very, like I said, even just Manhattan was only Fabio Clemente and Renzo, and then other people came in. We would compete, and I was very lucky, you know, to have grown up in that environment and seen it. And Renzo would use me as a sparring partner, as one of them, only because I was, probably because I wasn't that great in jiu-jitsu in the sense of I'm going to do unorthodox things. Because in jiu-jitsu, you kind of get to know what to expect. And sometimes from another jiu-jitsu guy. And sometimes a white belt will come in, and you have a little trouble with him. Yeah. Because he's very unorthodox.
Yes, you haven't seen that.
Yeah, it's like he's doing weird things like, oh, he's turning his back. Cool, I'll take his back. And the next thing you know, he stands up or he pushes you in a way that, you know, hey, that's supposed to be giving me your arm. You should never push like that. But next thing you know, you get knocked over. And so I was tough. I wouldn't tap unless, you know, I really had to tap. and had great wind back then. They would sometimes call me the Energizer Bunny. But there were a lot of guys who were certainly better than me, but he liked to use me. I was close-ish to his size. I was very lucky that I got to experience all that and see all the, him getting ready for fights and all the great guys and the incredible stories we had. Yeah, man, I got stories.
So how long did that go? Training jiu-jitsu in Manhattan with Renzo Gracie. How long were you training, and how long did it take you to get to blue belt, purple? How was your trajectory?
Yeah, so it took me, so Renzo didn't give out belts easy. It was very difficult to get a belt. And it got to be where you realize, like, man, of course you wanted a belt. There was never stripes then. Of course you wanted a belt, but you were really happy if you could give hell to somebody of a higher belt from another academy would come in.
Yeah, that's the best.
Yeah, it would be, or these huge jack guys would come in. Manhattan didn't have a lot of that, but guys from Long Island and New Jersey, Guidos would come in to Manhattan to want to train and learn. And you get to go with them, and also you're dominating these monsters who you knew if you got into a street fight in bars, because they love to fight in bars. So every time I would go out, because I would go out, but I was always apprehensive because I knew we're going to maybe get into a fight because these Guidos just love to fight. And my friends would start fights, and they're like, "Oh, we got Stan, and he'll defend." So it was always
take over, Stan.
But it was awesome when you get to start to learn how to play. So it took me 6 months to get my blue, which wasn't long, which was pretty good.
Fast.
But took me 4.5 years to get my purple from there, 4.5 more years. And then it took me another 5 years to get my brown. And then it took me a year to get my black, which is typical. Like when you get your brown, it should kind of be like, hey, you deserve the black. You're good enough, but you need to learn how to teach and a little ripening. So it took me 11 years.
And those belts, every time you got them from Renzo himself?
Everything was from Renzo. Yeah. All my lessons I ever learned were from Renzo. When I eventually left New York City, it was because Renzo wasn't teaching as much. He was opening up more schools. John and Sean were teaching, who are awesome guys, not just in technique, but as people. But it was like I met my fiance, my wife to be, and it was Manhattan was my life, New York was my life. I was living there at that time, and we decided to move to Florida, and that's how I ended up opening. But yeah, it was 11 years to get my black.
How soon after you got your black belt did you go and open your first academy?
So I moved to Florida, and we got married, and I was training. So I asked Renzo, where do I train? And there was no Renzo academies in all of Florida, and the only Gracie academy was Hillian, who was in Coral Gables, and that was over an hour and a half away. I said, Renzo, it's too far to go to Hillian. What do I do? He goes, who's nearby? He said, I was like American Top Team in Coral Springs. He goes, okay, go train there. And so I got his blessing because I didn't want to be a creonche, which was back then a creonche was a traitor, and it was really frowned upon to train anywhere else.
That probably comes from like the old days of martial arts, right?
Old days of martial arts, yeah, and the Brazilians really followed it because also the people were developing techniques. They didn't want to show it to other schools, so that they would surprise the guys in the tournaments only. Which really I think was detrimental to the improvement of jiu-jitsu. And once that changed, especially when the Americans came in and were much more open into sharing, Brazilian jiu-jitsu got much better, and then the Brazilians started to do it as well, and they got much better. So I trained with American Top Team. I wasn't training super often. I was learning mostly from Pajumpina, a smaller guy, and the small guys have to have great technique, fantastic technique, nice dude. But it just wasn't the ambiance that I loved. I just wasn't drawn. Like I would go to jiu-jitsu at least 4 days a week in New York for the atmosphere as much as wanting to learn. There was something that drew me there because of the energy. I didn't feel it in an American Top Team for whatever reason. And finally I was like, I want to open my... Renzo had always been telling me, Stan, open an academy. He was always pushing me to open an academy because I had businesses. And he felt I could represent it well. Like when women would come into the academy in New York, he would pair me up because he knew I wasn't
looking to crush them.
Or famous people, Guy Ritchie would come in and stuff. Henzo would often pair me up because he felt like I was polite and was nice about it. So I was like, okay, I had a baby. I had my first child, and I was in the hurricane protection business in Florida, and this was right after now. And I was making the most money I was ever making. It was incredible. I was making $10,000 10,000 a week.
Wow.
It was incredible. Unfortunately, it didn't last long because that's when we hit the real estate bubble. And so no one was improving their homes. They weren't building new homes. So my business disappeared. I was like, hey, this is my last shot to open up a business. I opened up the academy as a brown belt in Weston. I was teaching to build up my student base. I was teaching at a gymnastics school, not their students, but I was just marketing. As I was building it out, opened it up, had 10 students. So that way when it opened up, and I was the first academy in Weston. I was the first academy of Renzo's in Florida. And we quickly grew, but back then people didn't know it was a martial art. So people would be like, what kind of karate is jiu-jitsu?
Mm-hmm.
What's this? Before then, it would be a couple of years later, I opened up in end of 2007. And then it was only a couple of years later, they were like, oh, they knew what jiu-jitsu was. And then years later, be like, oh, Gracie, like word be common, where people were like, oh, we know Gracie. Yeah. And then eventually Renzo. So, you had to fight the ignorance. When am my child going to get a belt? As adults, just different things. Luckily, one of the beautiful things of jiu-jitsu as an owner is that the majority, or at least half of our students, were always adults. Karate, taekwondo is 90% kids. Yeah. We don't give black belt. You can't get a black belt as a child. So it was it was a great thing. Like anyone who's thinking of opening up a jiu-jitsu academy, I recommend you do it highly. Because you're hanging out with the fellas all day. The only job I feel better than, not better, as good or close to as good, maybe not as good, as close, is being a fireman, I think. Because you're hanging out with the fellas all day. You mean
the camaraderie, that brotherhood that gets built?
It's fantastic. You're hanging out with the fellas all day. You're doing what you love. You're in pajamas, hanging out.
On a comfortable mat.
Yeah, and you can make a great living, and you're really helping. Because it was the favorite time of day for your adult students. Some kids were being forced. But for sure, adults, it was the favorite time of their day. It was their bar. When they walked in, Norm from Cheers. Yeah. That's what it was.
We do have that.
Yeah. So it was a great feeling for me to know that that's what it was for them, and they were so appreciative.
And you said that somebody who's thinking about it, do it. Open an academy. What level of experience does someone need?
Now you got to have a black belt, unless you're in a place where there's no other academies anywhere near. Back then, there were people opening up academies with blue belts.
Because they were the top.
They were the only thing. And not that they were great blue belts, but that was the only thing. And you have things to teach. If you're a good blue belt, you have things to teach for sure. Like you have really good things. And as long as you're trying to improve.
If you're a good blue belt, but you also are a good teacher.
Yeah.
Right? Because I've talked to some guys who are experienced in martial arts, and they try to teach me something like improving a kick.
Yeah.
And they're good at it, but they don't know how to teach it.
100%.
Right? So
gotta know how to teach. It's very important.
What about a guy who loves you? What about me? I love jiu-jitsu, but I'm very far from getting to a brown or black belt. It's going to be a while. Could someone who's interested in investing in it, could they partner with somebody and open it?
Could you invest
with the black belt?
100%.
Oh, you could.
100%. Okay. Yeah, for sure. What's important, so you need to go into it. So listen, this is a great opportunity. You're about to open up a business that you're going to love, which is what everyone says. Do your passion, don't fuck this up. Like this is and you can really make very, very good money. You can easily make $250,000 a year. Just running it well to very well, let alone great. There's guys, there's $1 million academies who are taking in over $1 million, so they're probably netting over $500,000 a year, and that's an elite. But there are those. But certainly, I think $250,000 you can certainly do.
The margins are good, right? You're paying for a box, and you're paying for some upfront costs. You got to put the mat and all that. But it's
after that, it's paying instructors. That's it.
Yeah, but not a lot of variable.
No. It's steady. Overhead. Depending how big your academy is, as far as like how many people you're paying. Your nut will be anywhere, if you have staff, will be anywhere, give or take 15,000 is what you can think. You're charging, let's say on the low end, 150 a month. So 100 students, you broke even. I'm talking about between rent and insurance and all. Man, 100 students is easy. Don't mess this up. Here's how you don't mess it up. To start with, if you don't have any business experience, to start with, return phone calls. Like on any business you have, you're an electrician, you're a plumber, follow up. And Florida is notorious for people. It's one of the worst places I've ever been where they don't follow. And sometimes the guy, you made an appointment with your contractor and he shows up to your house and he never sends you the bid.
Yeah.
You know, a phone call happens, you answer the phone. You don't let it go to voicemail.
Like you did when I called that time.
Yeah.
You answered right away.
Yeah. If I'm teaching, of course I don't answer because these are my most important people right now.
Yeah.
Like I don't leave the mat for anybody other than a quick hello, but these people are paying. They have an expectation. I've promised to give them something more than they're paying for. I don't leave that mat. I teach them. At the end of the class, I'll talk to the person. Return the phone call. Have them come in, and then there's the whole thing of introductions and how to ramp them on and recognizing like, hey, listen, you know, is this a club that you're developing, a hobby, or you're doing a business? Because if it's a business, you need to have people who don't know how to defend themselves, who are weak physically and often mentally, and build them up. And it has to be an atmosphere that they feel safe, they are safe, and they're going to get better. And you don't give them a belt until they deserve it, and they'll appreciate it too. Oh. And on the few who want to leave because, hey, I've been training now 2 years, I haven't got my blue, you don't deserve your blue, and it's your fault as the instructor they didn't get it yet because, okay, it's going to take them longer, but they need more attention. You should be. But so you can be steadfast and honor like what's expected as a blue and a purple and all those.
And what is that? When you sold your academy, so you've moved on, but what justified for you that, let's say the blue, what justified getting that?
Blue was you knew all the basic techniques, and could apply them against white belts and other blue belts. You could apply it in real life training. And once that happens, you deserve your blue. So you have to be able to do it to blue belts as well, not just white. You can't be the best white belt. You have to be able to beat other blues and catch them in techniques. And then you get your blue. And it's the same thing with like purple. Now you're at certain expectations of certain techniques. Once you're a blue belt, you should be able to, or certainly a little bit into your blue, you should be able to defend yourself against any regular thug on the street. Not a really good, experienced fighter on the street, but any just tough guy who wants to start a fight at the gas station, you should be able to defend yourself and dominate him. You know, and a little side note, a lot of people are like, oh, the modern game, berimbolos, man, that's not jiu-jitsu, blah, blah, blah. Pulling guard, like, man, how are you going to do that in a street fight? Listen, you can't do a berimbolo against a good jiu-jitsu guy unless you already know the basics. You know, they're doing it because they're having fun, they're expanding their game. You can't just do against an experienced jiu-jitsu guy, have him in your guard and pull his arm across and arm bar him. You have to start developing other, so it expands. But by that time,
if you can do that,
they will clinch on someone, they will trip them, take them down, they will mount them, they will punch them in and just so you know, like, hey, jiu-jitsu people, most of you don't get into street fights. If you do, you mount the guy. You don't, when he pushes you away, you don't arm bar him. You don't triangle him from mount. You pound him in the face. He will turn his back, and then you're going to choke him and put him out. And only if the guy is pushing you and you're falling off, will you then, okay, let me take the arm. From the bottom.
Why would you avoid that arm on the street?
Because you don't want to be on the bottom. The guy could get a punch through.
So you want to stay on top.
Stay on top.
Mounted.
There's nothing really he can do to you when you are mounted on him.
Yeah.
You use your jiu-jitsu. You don't have to be a boxer and know how to punch. Believe me, you're going to be able to, from that position, drop elbows on his face. You got gravity
helping you. He's not going to hit you because he's on the bottom.
Yeah, from the bottom, yes, you're going to use your classic jiu-jitsu arm bars, triangles. You should know how to play an open guard to defend, or your closed guard and scooch to his back and take his back and choke him. But from top, keep top, use your jiu-jitsu to keep your base. And so I built my academy and, people loved it. And we trained very hard, but smart. And then those who really wanted to take it to other levels, we would sometimes have some extra classes for them. But we really trained. I mean, we learned. I mean, at the beginning I started, we were doing stand-up with white belts. And I remember people, breaking legs sometimes by mistakes. That's why we don't do a lot of stand-up usually in jiu-jitsu, because most of the injuries happen in takedowns.
ACLs.
But you need to know, you need to know how, one, to do the throws and how to defend. And a great guy that I recommend if you ever can take a seminar or watch him on Instagram is J-Flo, Jason Flores. He's
San Diego, or
he's out of San Diego, but he does a lot of touring. He has an academy online teaching, and his judo and wrestling takedowns are like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu academies in that he really goes and teaches, but he does it in a very safe manner that you can train it all the time at any age, older guys even, and not get hurt. So I would recommend.
Yeah, you may have been the one who told him about it, but Kerry Baker just went out to San Diego and hung out with him.
Yeah, and I just took 2 seminars with Jason Flores. And there's one, I'm going to live in Utah now, and was one in Salt Lake, and I drove 9 hours to get to Reno just to learn from him. The guy has a great, a high-level teacher, not just practitioner, but teacher.
So what was your approach? You've got one academy, it's going well, and then you opened a second. How'd you do that? Why'd you do that?
So I wanted to take it to another level, my income, but I knew that it's going to drop off. My main academy is going to drop off, and you can't open a second academy until you have the staff, and you really would like to hire always from within, because there's a loyalty there. And also to help and spread it to people that you know and love you and respect you, like give them the opportunity. So I had my number one guy, Juan, my lieutenant. He opened up his own academy already in Fort Lauderdale. He's doing great. I highly recommend you learn from him. Has excellent energy, excellent teaching skills. I went to Lake Worth. I was looking around, found an amazing location. I wasn't quite sure yet who, because I was thinking maybe it's going to be Juan. Maybe Juan wants to partner with me. And then I said, Juan, I found, man, I'm not letting this location go until I don't care. I'll find someone after. But hey, do you want? He didn't want to do. He wanted his own place, which I understood. I saw Santos Caban, Division I wrestler, a 2-time All-American wrestler.
Who was also doing jiu-jitsu
at this time. With me. Had started as a blue belt. He had originally started under a Renzo affiliate in New Jersey. We were very good friends. He's a beautiful human being. And he was sick of his work that he was doing, working for hotels in the back end. And I partnered with him. And I taught him how to run this school. At the beginning, I was there teaching. I had somebody start managing my academy. Juan was still managing a little bit at that time while he was going to build his out. Of course, my numbers went down. You have to expect it. Hey.
Because your attention is going now.
Yeah, and it's hard to find somebody. Look, when you have an employee, and you should teach him, and you should, if he's loyal to you, you should help him and teach him how to open his own business. You owe him that. Because otherwise, eventually, he's going to do it anyway. Yeah. So hopefully, you can actually invest in him
and partner with him,
and help him out getting there, and then you're now getting passive income. But recognize, like, if employees are employees because they don't necessarily have the initiative, so they don't work as hard or do the job necessarily as well. And when they do, expect in a few years he's going to go out on his own. So you can expect your original business to go down a little bit. It did. It went down 10%, but I had the other one now growing. Santos was doing a fantastic job. And I was no longer really able to teach as much. I was more managing, but I was still able to train and have fun. So it was nice and oversee. Weston was really my main home. That's my baby, and that's where I was most of the time. And so you want to take it to another level, you do that. And so what I would recommend, any kind of business you have, a plumbing, whatever it is, train your guys. You're going to get the best out of them while they're working for you. Save your money. Open one up. Partner with them. Take it to a level where they're now major owners as they're paying you back your initial investment. Now you're almost into it, let's say, for free. They're major owners. They appreciate it. They're working very hard because they're the major owner. They're taking it to a very high level. And now you have passive. And then your next student or employee, whatever business, then you open up in another area and you do the same. And you can do very well for yourself.
And is that a traditional way that people have done this in jiu-jitsu?
No.
No? What have they done?
Nothing. They didn't want people leaving. Maybe they would open another one, and then that original business would fall to shit. because they were trying to run both and teach both, and they weren't giving free reign to people, and they weren't giving
that freedom to run their own.
I learned that. I was actually, and it's important to keep learning. Everything is, just because you're a great jiu-jitsu practitioner doesn't mean you know how to run the business.
Yeah, for sure.
If you know how to run a business, you can run any business, electrician, anything, any store.
Yeah.
And then you hire the plumber, you hire.
Yeah.
But they don't do that, and a lot of people weren't doing that. They'd open up a second one, and the next thing you know, they lost maybe both their businesses, or they were in debt now because they had a lease that second place closed down, and now they have to rebuild their first one. You must invest in your staff, invest in yourself. It was something that really always impressed me with you. Once I understood what you were doing, how you were teaching people, and we had a few conversations, and I was like, man, this guy has a lot to teach, and I was considering actually hiring you on, but I knew at that time I was leaving. I had a good idea I was going to be leaving and moving away, so I never did it. But I've recommended people, and I never recommend anything unless I truly believe in it. And they've all had great success. I know now you've taken to another level to teach people, men, how to live life, overall life. So it's not just your business anymore. Right. Here's how you live life, which is really something very good that you get. And I see what it's done to people because my students my ex-students are doing it now. And
I appreciate it.
It's transformed them.
It's my biggest passion. I've never loved anything so much. So let's talk about, so you set up multiple businesses. You haven't kept them as passive income because you sold both of these academies in the last few years. Why'd you sell them? What are you doing now? What'd you do?
So, my first business I opened up was a frozen yogurt business. I was, how old was I? 23 or something, give or take, something like that. Built it up, worked very hard. For the first year and a half, I was working at least 70 hours a week. But it's not hard. It's your life. It's at that age, it's like, this is my life and I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
And then after a couple of years, the manufacturer offered to buy my route that I built up. And I'm like 25 or something. I'm like, whoa, that's a lot of money. To me at that age. Now it's not a lot. Yeah. It's money, but I was like, oh, yeah. Boom, took off, went traveled the world for months. Would come back, and then I'd hang out and have fun. Then also I saw my money dwindling, and I was like, oh, man, I got to start a new business now. And, just so you know, like a prequel to that was I was actually in school. I was actually in like special programs. I did well in school. I skipped 8th grade. And then in high school, I was in a special in New York City, we had 4 special programs for smarter kids. It was Bronx Science, Stuyvesant, Brooklyn Tech, and Hillcrest Pre-Med. And I passed the test, and I went to Hillcrest Pre-Med. So it was a pre-medical program in high school. So I had always thought I was going to be a doctor is what I wanted to do. I'm Jewish. My parents wanted me a doctor. If you're not a doctor or a lawyer, you failed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't matter what else you did.
Yeah.
It's funny. So I went to college. Did 100 hours of volunteer work in a hospital while I was in college, and I hated it.
Yeah. Good thing you did that volunteer work.
Yeah.
You would have gone down the wrong route.
Yeah. I hate it. It was miserable. I'm very empathic, and I got very depressed. I have no problem with blood. I was really intrigued. I love science and math, and I was really intrigued the body and helping people. But the misery in the hospitals really affected me.
You were a sponge for that?
Man, it was terrible. I'd get very depressed. The light, the puke green paint, the fluorescent light, it was terrible.
Zaps all your energy.
So I was like, man, I'm leaving college. I told my dad, and I was paying college myself anyway. I told my mom and dad. They were disappointed, but what are they going to do? And so I was waiting for a little while, opened up my first business, made a success, sold it, opened my second one. This one now was a smoked salmon distributorship, some caviar and stuff like that, mostly smoked salmon. Did very well with that. Again, worked super hard. I had forgotten how hard it was, but you love it. Built that up. After a few years, I had bought a loft in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. Met my wife-to-be while traveling. And I was already I was getting itchy again, and I was like thinking of selling my business again. And I only bought that loft as an investment. I had never done real estate before, but I had heard it was a very good thing. It was a loft. Manhattan was very expensive.
Was that just to rent it out?
to sell it, flip it. Again, the same kind of thing, like no residual income. You know, I didn't hire employees for my businesses. Met her, fell in love, sold my business, got again a lot of money, sold my apartment. I was amazed. I bought it for $225,000. 4 months later, sold it for $450,000.
Wow, you got a lot of money for that.
How old was I? I was 30 years old. Yeah, and this is 2003, 2002. I'm like, all of a sudden, I've got a lot of money in the bank for that age. And it was amazing. I was, whoa, holy cow, real estate. Like, I was amazed. So we went traveling, 2 months in Europe, got on a plane, went right to Thailand, 2 months in Thailand, traveling, living the life, you know, in love, and you know how it is, lust at that time. Came back to New York. Okay, real estate's the way to go. Like, wow, if I can do this in 4 months. So I became a realtor just to learn what people like.
And this is during the boom.
This is during
03,
the boom.
04, 05.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My sister had already moved to Florida. She told me how crazy the industry was. Real estate was down here. It was pretty much my life in Manhattan. It wasn't hers. She's Canadian. So I was like, hey, let's start a life together in Florida.
Your girlfriend at the time?
My girlfriend at the time. We got engaged just before we moved to Florida. And then I bought, with my money, I bought 2 places in Florida and then just started flipping properties. Started flipping. Then went into the hurricane bit. So it was always flipping. I was never holding on, getting. And if I look back now, and everyone was always recommending, like, hey, hold on to it, rent it out. But I was like, I wanted the money and then kind of like just step up, parlay into a nicer place to buy, flip, make more money. That was my idea. It's not the conventional idea. May not, since most people don't do that, I would say it's probably not the better idea. But for me, I felt it was the better.
You're ready to make money and move on to the next
thing.
thing.
I'm not patient. Like, I stress sometimes a little bit too easy. So if it was like, oh, am I going to get my rent and dealing with these headaches of fixing? I was like, man, let me just get the chunk, move into another one. And
you get the guaranteed.
The guarantee, you know. And,
so
yeah,
you come down to Florida, you get married, and that lasted a while. And then you got divorced.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Yeah, we were... So I'll say a little bit about her and make sure you understand that during that marriage, I'm as much at fault as it not working. But, you know, for sure, like I could, maybe I'll start to say some stuff that she had done. I don't know if I will or not as we talk, but we'll go on. Man, we had a great love affair. It was fantastic. You know, she was used to traveling. I was used to traveling. We had a great time. I had money. Once we had our baby, so we had our baby a year and a half into the marriage. So that's putting us together a little over 2.5 to 3 years. Kai was born in 2005. Yeah, 3 years and together. Instantly, the marriage went back. The moment we had the baby, because she couldn't deal with the stress. She was used to having a great life, you know, like very happy person, a lot of fun and energy is how she was, and people loved being around her because she was all up for anything. But now all of a sudden she was being held down by a baby, and she loved the baby. You know, she's a great mother, but she couldn't do both. She was no longer able to be a good lover, wife to me and to the baby.
And I've heard of this before, not you, but other guys who've told me similar things.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a wiring issue? Is some women are just not wired to be able to do that?
Look, I think most people, not even women, people in general can't give as much to someone they love when there's another thing that is that important to them. So when you start your business, it's very difficult for you to be the great husband as you were to your wife. You just spent all day, and she's like, okay, you're away from the home for 14 hours, working super hard. I get it. I'm going to support that. When you come home, you need to talk to me.
Yeah.
What did you do all day? And there's that song from Fleetwood Mac, like, how is it, I'm butchering the line a little bit, but how is it that you're gone all day and you come home and you have nothing to say? But man, we're tired. Yeah. Like, fuck, just give me, I was talking about with the fellas last night a little bit about it. I'm tired. I don't want to, my mind was working really, I just want to be at peace right now. If I was single right now, I would just plop in front of the TV and just
decompress and let it all out.
But look, she's taking care of the home and she doesn't have friends anymore, really. Like you're her, you've taken over that role and now so it's not just the women. So any woman or man who can do those two things is a special person. There are people, but it's not often. Especially at the beginning of having a first child, the quality of that marriage is going to go down.
It's going to get tested a lot.
It's going to get tested.
You remind me of something. When Jessica and I got married, we spent 3 years without no kids, and then we had our first son. Yeah. And I was building a business from the house, and she was a registered nurse in her 20s. For 10 years, she did that. So it was a role reversal. We have a very traditional marriage today. Yeah. But in the beginning, I was home working on a business, and after a couple months, she had to go back to work. Yeah. She went back to work, and I'd be home taking care of baby the whole time. And then she'd get home, and I'd say, all right, welcome home. Here you go. I'm going to work on the business. But one thing that would happen to me, she'd get home tired, and I wanted to talk. Yes. Because I was home all day with a baby. Yeah. So I feel that for women in the typical role.
Yeah. And I remember thinking, like, she'd be like, okay, here, your turn. And I'd be like, I just been busting my ass all day. Like, you've been at home chilling out. Yeah. Like, it's not really chilling, and it's not fun. As hard as I'm working out there, it's fun. It's exciting. It's exhilarating. Like, I'm being challenged. I'm playing chess all day. Yeah. But so within 6 months of us having a baby, we were in an intensive couples therapy, a 3-day weekend couples intensive therapy
to try to fix it.
To try and fix it,
man.
And every time we did a lot of therapy, and every time, like, either right after that therapy session or whatever, it was always good, but we couldn't keep it up. We were both selfish in certain ways. I expected her, man. She'd be like, "Yeah," I'd be like, "If you have sex with me, then I'll feel love towards you, and I'll want to sit and talk and chat." And she said, "Well, I'll have sex with you. I won't have sex with you if you sit and talk and chat and be emotional with me." And it's like, you first. No, you first. No, you first. And we were both stubborn. And it was a shit marriage from a year and a half in.
And how long did it last?
17 years.
Wow. So you both just holding on for...
Holding on. My parents stayed... So Carol and I never fought in front of our kids. So I was like, I'm going to tough this out until the kids go to college, and then I'll get a divorce. So my parents divorced when I went to college. But they fought all the time, which was terrible. So I don't do that to your kids, because they don't learn how to properly interact with a wife, a husband, a wife. It's very important to know how to love, and I didn't learn that. But because I didn't do that to my kids, we didn't fight. We did it in private. I was like, I'll stick it out. The last few years here in Florida, I became miserable. I was like, I don't know if I can do this actually anymore. I became miserable. I was no longer enjoying life. In the academy, I was there almost all day.
Because that you enjoyed.
Yeah, but I still wasn't happy. It was really starting to wear. And I was taking it out like on Juan, because he was around me all day long. And I was taking it out on myself. It was really not good. And I was really contemplating divorce. And then, things happened. My family was miserable here in Florida because a lot of people aren't very friendly. And in Weston, since we weren't Latin, a lot of the kids kind of like would leave my kids out. Yeah. And Manhattan, that's why I left Manhattan. I didn't think that was a great place to raise kids. And I was thinking, from what I was seeing here and seeing what the kids were doing in high school here in Florida, sexually and with drugs, Weston had a lot of money. I said, this is not the place. We were like, let's go move. I ended up moving to Utah, which is a fantastic idea because what a great place to live. It's idyllic, very Americana. These kids are very happy, wholesome. Of course, there's some kids who are doing some bad stuff, but in general, like, my kids are living not quite Norman Rockwell, but really with their friends. It's fantastic. And very quickly, so we moved to Utah, hoping also maybe this will fix things. And all of a sudden we had 2 fights in front of the kids. And somebody had said to me, I don't remember where it was, had said to me once, it's better the kids come from a broken home than live in a broken home. And when that happened, in that second fight in front of the kids, I said, I want a divorce. That's it. And she said, yes, I want a divorce too. 3 months later, mediation, boom, done.
Was it a peaceful divorce?
No. Which I don't know how you can really have. I think you're a rare person if you have that. Because otherwise, why would you get divorced, right? I mean, it's got to be bad.
Some people do it.
Some people do it. It was, I wanted to get the hell out as fast as I could. So I offered everything I had except for a down payment for a home and my academies. I said, I've built myself up before. I'll do it again. This is the mother of my kids. Let me give her what she needs as much as I can give. Let me give her everything she needs for her to be set so that the mother will be, my kids are going to be in a nice home. She's not stressed. She has money. Luckily, I was able to give her a lot. And again, that's all I had was my business and a deposit for a house for my kids. The divorce wasn't nice in what she was trying to get from me and stuff. It was a very stressful period in my life. Very stressful. It was pretty fucking scary when at one point she really tried to take everything from me when she thought she could, after I had already and she had agreed that I'd give her everything. People will do that. She's not the first. You know, am I angry about it and never trust her again about it? Yes. Is she the only one who's ever done that? No. Have many people done that? Yes. If she wasn't so angry with me, not that I had actually done anything terrible to her, but the fact that I didn't give her the emotions that she wanted, years had passed, time had passed, she lost some of the best years of her life she could think of. I get the anger. I get it. I was at fault during the marriage. I was at as much as fault as she was. Ended up being, luckily, due to my brother-in-law, Murphy, talking to her and letting her know, hey, listen, and Stan's offering you a really good thing, take it. And I told her, you know, that you're going to back me into a corner and I'm going to have to get a lawyer. Like right now we're doing mediation and you will never get what I offered you.
For one, a lot of it will go to the lawyers.
And the kids are not going to get it. Because whatever's left after you and I, the kids will get it. But if it goes to a lawyer, it goes to a lawyer.
You know, I've had friends tell me they've been through divorces where they couldn't, you know, so I talk to guys all the time. So this is another point of view as the women. I'm sure it'll make sense. Maybe. But these guys have told me that their wife dragged it through court and attorneys, and in the end, nobody got anything.
No, they're pissed.
It all went to the attorneys.
They're pissed. You're pissed. I mean, maybe you would do the same if they had all the money, right? You hear about that, right? The guy is the home, whatever, or he has whatever income he's making. She's loaded, and he goes after everything. It happens. You're angry, or you're like, man, why can't I have a great life? Why not? And people tell me I deserve half or more than half. You know, like I gave her way more than half. Whatever. A lot
of emotions involved.
It's emotional. Like, would she do that if the emotions weren't involved? I certainly hope not. But nonetheless, I carry an anger. But for those of you who are getting a divorce, the best thing we did, which she had recommended, was read the book. And we actually hired a therapist. Conscious uncoupling.
That's the name of the book?
One is certainly if you have kids. But if you care about yourself and you're not just angry, even just for yourself, conscious uncoupling. It teaches you how to uncouple in a manner that you won't be angry. Because if you keep this anger that you have with her, it'll stay. And now you won't be able to fall in love again. You're going to be an angry person.
You're going to be bitter.
You're going to be bitter. And you won't have the ability. Like, what other woman wants to be around that? And if the woman does, like, she's a victim. She's
just a mess.
Yeah. But then your kids are in the middle of it. They are in that space in the middle. So this book teaches you, like, for instance, I never said, hey, you guys going to your mother's? Are you guys going to Carol's? You going to mom's house? You know, we're connected. Like, never did I speak bad.
So you weren't alienating her. You weren't making her a bad guy.
Never speak bad about her to your kids.
Good.
No matter how adulterous or thieving, that's their mother. And if they think that their mother is a whore,
you're going to destroy it.
It's going to, like, I'm spawned from that.
Yeah.
So what am I? And then
I'm broken.
how do I not know that? Like, what's wrong with me that I don't recognize that in this? The parent is their safety. It's not until I was in my 30s did I see my parents' faults. So if you are, because now I'm old enough to see it, and then you're luckily old enough to accept it because you're now starting to see your limitations. You do that to a kid, teens or younger, they're going to get messed up, and they will be messed up forever.
That's interesting because it's not just, oh, my parents are divorced, that messed me up. It doesn't have to be that way if it's done properly.
No, it doesn't have to be that way. We try and do meals together.
With your
with the kids.
ex-wife?
Yeah, with the kids. Yeah, her. Yeah.
You, her, and...
We try. We do some. Like, when we communicate to each other, like, I don't know, I'm probably not going to tell my kids to watch this thing, but, man, it's nasty. Our texts, and that's why we don't even phone call. But people say, oh, you should only phone call because texts don't communicate well. You really don't know the intent.
What'll happen
get into a fight, but no.
When
we're on the phone, it's nasty, and like, and she's still trying to get more from me sometimes. You feel, whatever, right, wrong, whatever. Never, ever in front of the kids. Never, ever in front of the kids. And I really believe that she also, I'm 98% sure she never talks bad about me to my kids.
Yeah.
So...
I've heard that in the end, if parents talk bad about, in that situation, talking bad, eventually it comes back to bite the parent who's talking bad.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
It really ruins it.
Just like anything, right? Gossip. If you're even just gossiping about other things, people are like, what's with you?
Yeah, there's always something with you.
Yeah, and you don't put your kids, and it's so easy to do it. Yeah. Oh, your mother, like, she's late again. Like, just even something like that, like, or if they complain about her, it's so easy for me to like roll my eye, just roll my eyes, but I don't.
Don't do it.
Like, don't.
Hey guys, mom
had a tough day. You don't know. You got to defend. Conscious uncoupling. It was a great thing that I did.
Good.
And we even hired the therapist, and it was during COVID, and so we did Zoom calls with the therapist to also kind of reinforce.
So let's talk about, before we get out of here. Your son, your oldest son, Kai, who I think is a phenomenal young man. I don't know I met your youngest son, but I know your oldest son, and I've had some conversations with him. And he's going an untraditional route. It sounds like you didn't force him or pressure him into college or anything. And that kid is what, 18? 19. And he has got a business. He's already exploring the next business, how he could get new clients, how he could get better customer service, because I've had a few calls with him.
Yeah.
Amazing. What part did you have in that and getting him going in that way? Because he's not the average kid. He's way above.
Yeah. Both my kids are amazing. My youngest, Asher, who's 14 now, is smarter than me, more of a lover than me, like just a sweet, sweet person, and very, very smart. My older one is, I would say, as smart as me. So Asher's smart. I'd say Kai's as smart as me. So personable. Kai is very outgoing, extremely outgoing. So growing up, my father, who worked for somebody, but him and his friends, it was always European Jews we hung out with. We're always talking about business, this building, buy this, blah, blah. And my parents always allowed me to sit there and listen. It was just what I was used to, but I was never allowed to partake in the conversation. But I always listened. So that's kind of like what made me want to go into business and helped me understand money a little bit, like how, money makes money. With my son, Kai, I always encouraged him, and Asher too, because Asher also has an entrepreneurial spirit, but he's younger, to listen and ask questions. So Kai would ask questions, and so I always indulged it. So for him, that was normal. And I always told him, I said, listen, you don't have to go to college if you don't want to. You can't mess around. Like, you can't like be a bartender or waiter and then just go out and party. Yeah. You can be after high school, you can waiter, but you're saving all that money to do a business.
Yeah.
And because, man, most of these kids who go to college are just going to college just to go to college, and they think it's a prerequisite. Plus, they can party and have a lot of fun. And hey, this is one of one of the times of life, like a
rite of passage.
A rite of passage to party. I don't agree with that. And they come out in debt, and it's just a terrible thing. So I let him know this is not what you have to do. In high school, he had already started some businesses. He had we call it ices in New York, slushes, whatever. Like it was like a little shed.
It's like a shaved ice.
Shaved ice. Yeah. In a parking lot, a shed that he bought with another friend.
And you put it like in a Home Depot, or
it was in a supermarket parking lot.
Oh yeah, that's
and
right.
And I mean, I told him, I was like, dude, don't get a partner. Always better to have employees. It's rare to have a partner who's going to work as hard as you, and you'd prefer that you're the weak one, that he's that. It didn't work because of that. Whatever, he kind of learned that lesson, and then serial entrepreneur, and so he graduated high school a year early, a full year early, because he just hustled, and then he was doing real estate wholesaling.
Yeah,
tried that. It was okay, made a little bit, but now he's doing home services. He started with a window washing business that he never really washed the windows. He hired people. Now he has, I think he's got like 8 or 10 people working for him. He's just in charge of the marketing and the sales and the bookkeeping. He does window washing. They have gutter cleaning. They have dryer vent cleaning, Christmas lights, pressure washing, just that whole ancillary of, So, and you've helped him. I asked you, like, hey, could you have a talk with him? And thank you for really volunteering several hours.
It's a pleasure, because seeing how driven he is, it's just refreshing, because I always wonder what's wrong with this generation. They need to work harder. Man, he's doing all those things. He's creative. He's thoughtful. He's open. He has phenomenal questions. You get to learn a lot about someone with their questions.
Yeah.
Yes, great questions.
He works really hard on his businesses. At home, it's terrible. Like, it's like, how many times do I got to tell you that you don't put your stuff in the sink? It goes in, I mean, how many, he's just, and then I'll ask him to do stuff, and he, like, nothing.
Yeah, his mind is somewhere
which
else.
Is annoying for me, but it's at least I know he will always take care of himself and take care of himself well.
And when it's his house, he'll probably do his own dishes.
I said when you live by yourself, there's two things that are going to happen. If you live by yourself, it's probably going to be a messy place. You have a roommate, and you're going to see now what it's like to live in someone else's mess. Then you're going to start to become very clean.
That's why it's so good that they have experiences.
And he lives like a really idyllic life. Like every night he goes out with his friends. Every night. And it's not to do drugs and drink, though. You know, sometimes they'll drink a little bit, and sometimes maybe they'll smoke pot, but by far mostly they don't. And it's Utah, so the kids grew up in LDS Mormon families. Most of the families have left the church, but they still grew up.
Those values.
Very wholesome.
Yeah.
So they're at their friend's house, hanging out, playing poker. They'll have bonfires like by a river or in the Salt Lake flats, or go camping. Like every night he's out, and then every morning he wakes up and gets his work done. And Sunday he sleeps in and does nothing. But 6 days a week, man, he's hustling.
Good.
And it's a real quality of life, you know. And
it's funny you said the LDS. One of my sons has a bunch of Mormon friends, and they're good kids.
Man,
they're really good kids. Well, you know a lot of them.
Yeah, I love living in Utah because these people grew up in loving homes. They're really loving homes. I see the fathers always playing with the kids, always playing with the kids outside, genuinely playing, not like, okay, I got to put my 15 minutes in.
Yeah.
I see couples and old couples walking hand in hand all the time, which I've never seen anywhere in my life. I've never seen that. When I first moved in, I saw that. I said, oh, look at that. Look at that new couple. They're 80 years old. Look at that. They're still getting
They've been doing that for 55 years probably.
Growing up in the church or in a religion is very good. They tend to be very tight communities. They've left the church, like many religions. They find corruption and they leave. Yep. But the fact that they grew up like that.
Yeah. Did you grow up religious?
No. We are, what would be the word for it? Reformed Jews. So the High Holy Days we did. Yeah. We did the High Holy Days. Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah. Barely did really Hanukkah, Passover. So we didn't really do the fun ones of Hanukkah.
Right. You did
barely. Like I don't really remember.
Did you fast?
I fast every year. I did it when I was 13. I did it a couple times when I had it for my bar mitzvah. But then I really started again when I had kids. I don't remember when I was doing it before. I probably did it a little bit in my 20s. But once I had kids, I do it every year now. Wow. No water, no food for 24 hours.
Dry.
Yeah. Which is good and it's easy. The older you get, it's easy.
Yeah.
It's good for you.
Day goes by fast. Man, Stan, thanks for being here.
Yeah.
And
like they say, time flies. Huh?
Yeah, look how long we've been talking, and we didn't even realize it.
How long?
We got close to an hour and a half.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah. For two guys that like to move around and do stuff.
And know each other well, huh?
Yeah.
But you're forced to talk like this. We know more of each other.
Yeah, know more about you. A lot more, man. Yeah. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being my first example in jiu-jitsu and getting me involved. And I've been doing it for over 4 years now. Thanks to you getting me
Let me say something about you, because I brought you up a couple of times and you keep pushing it away. You're humble, and it's not just like, no, this is about me. Like you're being humble, but people should understand a little bit about Joel. You know, Joel has built himself up in many ways, you know, spiritually, physically, financially, built with effort, you know, with determination, with consciously got to where you are now. And it's impressive for you to live it. You're lucky to be living that life. Your wife is I'm sure you have problems with your wife. I'm sure you have problems with your kids. But overall, you know, the benefit that you have and have created in your circle and have now helped to spread through the brotherhood community you've done now with these podcasts to be able to share things is impressive. And I hope you recognize that about yourself. Pat yourself on the back sometimes. There's nothing wrong with it. All of you out there, when you're alone and you have a little time to yourself, recognize, appreciate, because life can be very hard. A lot of things are getting in your way, and you can always let them get in your way. There's no way you will get anywhere in life without working hard to overcome those obstacles. They will make you stronger. And if you don't fight to overcome it, it will make you weaker. And you're a great example of that.
Thanks.
And,
I appreciate it. Yeah. This is my passion. I love to share what I'm doing. And if I could have any success, anybody can, because I started with nothing and not much guidance and all that. So this is my absolute pleasure, is to share some of my role models like you with my friends. Thanks for being here.
All right, man. Thank you. Thank you.